All right, so we're talking about the difference between super corporations, and that's what Jonathan Morris named them. I'm not mad at people for getting big and having big companies and making a bunch of money. I love it. We need the billionaires, the millionaires. Do we have any trillionaires?
I have no idea. But the problem is they get that way because they make things cheap in other countries. You're talking like Walmart, right? Like,
right. Yeah, so that's who I'm talking about in a bad way.
Right.
Like the guy who's out there doing his thing. Like I know what it's like to make a couple $1 million, and I know what it's like to lose it all.
That
all
must
right?
be so nice.
Yes.
I mean, not the lose it part.
Yeah, I know what it's like. There was a time when I was hitting on all cylinders, and bad choices. Things happen. People do stupid things, really stupid things.
Well, and when you're running a business, there's a lot of risk you have to take.
Yeah,
that could be good or could be bad.
It was all self-inflicted injuries. It was 100% my fault.
Okay, well,
I mean, we did have some bad weather, some other things, but I could have managed it and pulled through it if I would have been. It just was whatever.
It's okay.
What it
This
is.
isn't a confession corner. Go ahead.
Are you my priest?
No, I'm saying this isn't.
Eat the cracker. I don't think priests do that. But anyways, yes, companies like Walmart, companies like. You hear all the stuff about John Deere and all these different companies, Tyson, IBP in the meat business, and they get laws passed like origin and label laws. They get them retracted when origin and label laws it was something that Trump brought back that I think Obama did away with. It was around
where like our fruit and stuff, it had to have where it was coming from
and our meat.
Or okay,
mainly
I
our
wasn't
meat.
Looking at
so
that as much.
you were supposed to know where your meat came from, so you had an option if you wanted to buy imported meat or American meat. And then Pelosi reversed that. And I tell everybody, I swear on everything that I know, that first impeachment of Donald Trump when he was in office, it was all about them distracting us because at the same time they were handing down the impeachment judgment, for lack of a better word, that's the same time they were voting. And Pelosi dropped the gavel on doing away with the origin label laws again because it wasn't fair discrimination against the poor Mexican and Honduran farmers. They weren't selling as much meat as they used to sell. But her husband was in on that stock trade. So anyways, that's what I'm talking about. When companies are so big that they have politicians changing laws and changing regulations that hurt Americans instead of helping Americans. Because remember, the USDA and the FDA and the EPA were all put together supposedly to make us safer and make sure that people were not screwing us on the back end with no lube.
We kind of knew, though, that having organizations like that wouldn't. They would take over and screw us.
Yes, anything in the government that has 3 or 4 initials are commie bastard operations. That's just the way it is. And I hope Trump wins, and I hope he does away with Department of Education and the DOJ and get clean slate. Get them all get all that off of our budget. Get all that off our payroll federally. Let all that money go toward our debt. Get our debt down so our great-grandchildren aren't paying off this deficit that we have.
Oh, it's never going to be paid off. You think our great-grandchildren are going to pay that?
No, because they keep raising them. They keep doing their thing, and they're skimming off the top, and they're charging all of us for it, and they're going to bankrupt the country. That's what it's about. But I want you to start, and we've talked about this in videos about reading the labels and understanding your food. And if you're reading a label and something doesn't make sense, look it up. Find out what it is.
Just Google it. Super easy.
Google. It's crazy because Amy actually was Googling something of a label, and she was asking a lot of questions. You know how you can Google and then ask another question, and Google ask another question, all that. And then we were making a bunch of notes on it, and then she went back to like review something so she can make sure her notes are right. And it said page not found, no longer found. And I think the algorithm was smart enough to know that we were fixing, and we still are going to show you this, that you go to the store to buy bacon, and there's 9 different labels. And there's like the Wright Brother and Hickory Sweet and Oscar Mayer and this label and that label, but they're all owned by 3 companies, Tyson, Smithfield, and then the Oscar Mayer people, right? And so like the Wright label, it looks like this big, beautiful farm family label, but it's owned by Tyson. And then Hormel, So you got Smithfield and then you got Hormel, and they're different price points. But they both are owned by Smithfield, and they both come out of the Smithfield factory.
They're different price points. Does that make the meat better? Does that mean the meat for the higher
No.
priced one is better?
It's making you think you have options, and you don't.
Oh.
It's trickery. It's trickery dickery. Trickery dickery duck. He went by the great shop. He thought he had
Jonathan.
choices, but he had none. Hickory dickory duck. How's that for a nursery rhyme? I'll tell you why I'm telling nursery rhymes in a minute. But I want to tell you a little story about fish dip. Lee was very active while he was at the grocery store. And he sent me a picture of this fish dip and with a question. And it was, why the F is this in my fish dip? When I make fish dip at home, I use fish and mayonnaise and salt, and that's all I use. So I blew up the label, and I had a little conversation with him last night. And the ingredient in question is calcium chloride.
That sounds like something that would be a preservative. I mean, or it's calcium, so it's got to be good for us, right?
Calcium chloride comes out of limestone rock, and it was originally used to de-ice roads or also to cut down on dust and control dust in laying gravel roads. The FDA says that the compound inside of it is actually safe for human consumption, and it can be used to replace salt because, you know, all the health people say you need a low sodium diet, which don't get me wrong. You don't want to just be eating salt by the handful.
I mean,
But salt, if you go back to the Bible, is the preservation of life, right? Jesus even says, be salt and light to the world. So salt by itself is not bad, but when you start the chemical compound of stuff that imitates salt, then maybe you have a problem, maybe you don't. So would you like to know, just for fun, if you're buying, now calcium chloride is in Gatorade, it's in Propel water, it's in Dasani water.
Dasani water? Just like the plain water?
There's nothing plain about Dasani. Dasani is like drinking a Coca-Cola. Read the back of Dasani, all the stuff in it. Dasani water is not water.
That's so weird. I mean, I don't really...
The worst two waters you could drink and buy thinking you're doing something good for your life is the Propel and the Dasani because of the stuff they add to it for flavor, taste, preservation, to make you like it better. They say it can be used as an electrolyte. But I just wanted to show you here, and this is according to Science Life magazine, and it lists like 97 doctors that study this stuff. Too much of the chemical compound of calcium chloride can have adverse effects on humans' health. All right?
Like the ice on the road, it can melt your insides.
So too much exposure or intake can cause irritation to the skin, the eyes, and your respiratory system. Prolonged or repeated use or exposure can lead to the development of dermatitis and other severe skin conditions.
Nobody wants that.
But it's in Gatorade, it's in Powerade,
So maybe...
it's in Coca-Cola, it's in Propel water, it's in Dasani water. So how did Mr. Dickey, Tricky Dickey, talk the FDA and the EPA, who are supposed to be protecting our health, into allowing this to be put into food under the assumption that, well, it'll replace salt and we want to get people off sodium, so we'll put this compound supplement in there that we normally use to de-ice roads.
That's what they did with sugar when they gave us that sucralose.
Yeah, it's all crap. It's all killing us. We live in reality, right?
I hope so. Or maybe I don't hope so.
Like an alter universes. There's a little magical sheet between us. But all right, so think about this, because I was raised in the country. All right,
You don't say.
a little bit, just a little bit. I like mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is my favorite condiment.
Oh, gosh, that's my husband's too.
I put mayonnaise on a hot
So
dog. I put mayonnaise on grilled cheese
gross.
sandwiches. I put mayonnaise on everything.
No, it's gross.
I dip my French fries in mayonnaise.
Oh.
Ain't nothing better. But when you pick out mayonnaise or ketchup or ranch dressing, sodas, what else did I put down here? I'll just list it, candy bars, things like that. You know in your heart, these items are not good for me.
There's sometimes foods, as our teachers would tell us, The preschool teachers would always say, those are sometimes foods. You can have
Oh.
them sometimes. You don't want to have them all the time.
Right. I got you. That makes sense. All right. Thank you, because that's where I'm going. So you pick up a Snicker bar, you ain't got no business reading the label.
No, you know it's not good
You
for
pick up a can of Coca-Cola or a
It's
Dr.
a
Pepper
snack.
or a Mountain Dew,
Right.
you ain't got no business reading the label. A bag of Doritos, no business reading the label. Because you willfully are picking up junk snack food to kill a craving, curb a craving, itch a
Burst
scratch,
of energy.
whatever,
Right.
knowing it's bad for you. But you go to the grocery store and you buy Philadelphia cream cheese, or you buy New England fish dip. And
I
you're-
mean, none of those really sound like healthy foods.
not that they're healthy foods, but cream cheese is supposed to come from the cow, from the milk, from the cream, right? It's
It
like,
has cheese in it, which makes me think dairy.
yeah. But you're not expecting these chemicals to be added into it
Right.
just so they can cut corners, cut costs. And one of the biggest ways for them to cut corners and cut costs is actually not cutting, it's prolonging. So when you walk into a grocery store, the reason, and this is where Organic Meats is different, all right? Our store is all perishable items fresh from the farm.
Yeah.
Even the stuff we make, our bone broth, our jellies, our jams, when we do something, it doesn't last forever. Our bacon is cured, naturally smoked with no nitrates, so you only have about 14 days of our bacon and you got to eat it or freeze it. But the reason the grocery stores only have that outside shell of the things that could go bad and everything else is in boxes and bags, and you pick up the box of a Campbell's soup and it's like, what? It don't expire until 2039?
Good.
You know what I mean? It's all this stuff and the chemicals they put in that. But they falsely advertise on TV about a hearty meal, Campbell's soup is good for the soul, or fish dip. Hey, it's got tuna in it, it's got this fish and that fish. It must be okay because it's fish. Fish is good for me. But then you read all these ingredients, and in that picture, I don't know, I couldn't even count how many things are in that fish dip that Lee sent me. But calcium chloride is one of them. And it's starting to make me sick. It's kind of disgusting. Again, we'll go back to water real fast. Dasani and Propel. Do you know how many people I see drinking Dasani and Propel? And they're like, oh, it's water. Man, that's not water. That's the farthest thing from water. But when we get back, this is where it gets demonic, and people should be locked up forever because they're going after our babies. They're killing the babies now. Between the Ribs of Drive the Boris. We'll be right back.